spring of 1453. Picture 80,000 soldiers camped outside the most famous walls in the world. The city of Constantinople, capital of the Roman Empire, seat of Christendom in the East, a city that had stood for over 1,000 years, was staring down the barrel of something it had never faced before. Sultan Mehmed II was 21 years old, and he had a plan. Not just a bigger army, a better weapon. An engineer named Urban had built him a cannon, a truly monstrous bronze cannon capable of hurling stone balls weighing over 600 pounds. Let that sink in, 600 pounds. And Mehmed hadn't just brought one, he'd brought a battery of them. When the bombardment started on April 12th, the Theodosian Walls, the same triple-layered defensive system that had shrugged off barbarians, crusaders, and every force that had ever tried its luck, began to crack. This wasn't a siege, this was a statement. The medieval world was over. A new era had just announced itself with a sound like thunder. Here's the thing about Constantinople by 1453. The Byzantine Empire was basically already gone. Centuries of plague, civil war, and Ottoman encroachment had eaten away at it piece by piece. What remained was almost literally just the city itself, a ghost empire holding on to one very valuable piece of real estate. And valuable it absolutely was. Constantinople sat right where Europe meets Asia, controlling every ship that passed between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. For Mehmed, this wasn't just about prestige or religion, though those mattered too. It was a strategic headache. His empire had territories in Europe and Asia, and this Byzantine city sat right in between them, physically splitting his realm in two. It had to go. The problem? Taking it was extraordinarily difficult. On the seaside, the Byzantines had strung a massive iron chain across the entrance to the Golden Harbor, bottling up the Ottoman fleet before it could even approach. On land, those Theodosian Walls had been repelling invaders for 1,000 years, and somewhere out there, Western Christian powers might send reinforcements. Mehmed had one bet to make: overwhelm the defenses with sheer firepower before anyone could come to the rescue. The numbers were almost absurd. 80,000 Ottoman troops versus roughly 7,000 defenders. But the Byzantines weren't just sitting there hoping for the best. Emperor Constantine XI had skilled fighters on his side, including a contingent of Genoese and Venetian mercenaries commanded by a genuinely gifted soldier named Giovanni Giustiniani. And the walls did their job. Every morning, Mehmed's great cannon blasted chunks out of the Theodosian Walls. Every night, the defenders filled the gaps with timber, earth, and rubble. It was exhausting, grinding, miserable work, but it was working. The soft earth actually absorbed the cannonballs better than solid stone. The defenders were holding on. Then, Mehmed did something no one expected. He couldn't get his ships past the iron chain blocking the harbor, so he went around it. Literally, over a single night, he had his engineers lay down a wooden slipway greased with animal fat across the hills of the Pera district. Then, somehow, they hauled 80 ships up and over those hills and launched them into the Golden Harbor on the other side of the chain. By morning, Constantine woke up to find Ottoman warships floating where they absolutely had no right to be. He now had to defend the sea walls too, which meant stretching his already tiny force even thinner. It was an audacious, almost theatrical move, and it worked. By late May, both sides were running on fumes. The city was hungry. Mehmed was getting impatient. His advisors were whispering that maybe they should cut their losses and negotiate. He gave the order for one final all-or-nothing assault before dawn on May 29th. The attack came in waves. First, the Bashi Bazouks, irregular troops whose job was basically to tire out the defenders. They were sent in and they were repelled. Then came the Anatolian infantry, pushing harder, getting further, but eventually thrown back too. The defenders were battered, but still standing. Then, Mehmed released the Janissaries, his elite soldiers, the finest fighting force in the Ottoman world, and right at that moment, fate intervened. Giovanni Giustiniani, the commander holding the most critical section of the wall, took a serious wound. He asked to be carried out for medical attention. His departure triggered a panic among the Latin mercenaries around him. Discipline fractured right when it mattered most. And then, someone found the Kirka Porta, a small postern gate left unsecured after a previous sortie, barely noticed in the chaos. Ottoman soldiers poured through it. Within minutes, their flags were on the towers. The cry went out, the city has fallen. Emperor Constantine XI knew it was over. According to the chronicler George Sfrances, who was there, Constantine did something remarkable. He reportedly tore off his imperial insignia, the purple robes, the symbols of 1,000 years of Roman succession, then led a final charge into the advancing Ottoman ranks near the Lycus Valley. His body was never definitively identified. Think about what that means. The last Roman emperor died fighting, anonymously, lost in the chaos of the final battle. The line that stretched back, however tenuously, to Augustus, to Constantine the Great, to Justinian, simply ended, not with a treaty or an abdication, but in the mud of a breach in the wall. Inside the city, thousands of civilians had packed into the Hagia Sophia, the great church, the spiritual heart of Byzantine Christianity, praying for a miracle. When the Janissaries broke through the doors, the resistance was over. Mehmed II rode into the city that afternoon. He went straight to the Hagia Sophia and ordered its immediate conversion into a mosque. It was a message to the world, and no one missed it. The fall of Constantinople didn't just end an empire, it reshuffled the entire world. On the military side, the message was immediate and brutal. Stone walls were no longer enough. If Mehmed's cannon could crack the Theodosian Walls, no fortification in Europe was safe. Every kingdom on the continent started rethinking its defenses overnight. Economically, things got complicated fast. The Ottomans now controlled the key land routes between Europe and Asia, the Silk Road essentially. European merchants couldn't just pass through anymore. They needed another way to reach the spice markets of India and China. That desperation drove the age of exploration. Vasco da Gama sailing around Africa, Columbus heading west into the unknown. The entire European scramble for sea routes traces back in a direct line to this moment. One city, one night. The world that came after looked nothing like the one before it.